Okay, we've walked through the tiles on the side, the layers. There's like another layer within these layers, which is helpful to understand because there's actually a lot that this thing can do. So let's look into these. They refer to them as modes, and they're just inside the layers, and it's what changes what you're looking at when you're looking at the top of the mixer window. So let's just go top to bottom. Input. If we actually had a physical I/O rack connected to this, you would see in here your phantom power, your gain on your preamp. But right now we're just looking at polarity and trim because I'm just doing some virtual sound check stuff here. I don't have actual I/O patched right now. But if we did, which I guess I probably can, there we go, cool. So you can turn on your 48 volt here, you can toggle your preamp right here. You can also grab the touch and turn knob on the surface and control it that way, or you can also across here, you can see it says pan. You can also change it to utility, and here's gain. So gain is now up here that will reflect what's going on. So that's if we actually had a connection up there, you'd see that on the input side. Rack, each input, like Logic, Pro Tools, most DAWs, has an opportunity for 8 plugins in the rack. And we've got just some defaults in here kind of teed up for you to kind of get started and rolling with, but this is where they show up, is in the rack. So if you wanted to add a plugin, this is where you would grab that with and drop it in from here. If you want to remove a plugin from the rack, click it, fly it away. Really simple. Dyne EQ. So if you're using the onboard emotion plugins, of which there's 3 of them, this is the emotion, the full name is emotion LV1. So they have 3 plugins that come with this system, and you can see them in the rack as Emo F2, Emo Q4, Emo D5. F2 is 2 filters, high pass, low pass. Q4 is a 4-band parametric EQ. And then D5 is a 5-part dynamic suite. Most consoles, Yamaha, Digico, Avid, Behringer, Midas, it doesn't matter, you get 2 dynamics options per channel. This one actually gives you 5 in its onboard dynamic suite, which is crazy if you actually think about it. If you're using those emo plugins, they'll show up in here, and you can get to things quickly from in here, but you can kind of see an overview of the EQ with the filters overlaid, and then here's a gate and a compressor kind of metering, all those things. That's just kind of a heads up view if you want to see it here. Moving down, I'll do a video just on effects and monitor routing, because there's kind of 3 ways to skin that cat. But you can kind of see here, here's your effects. You can see down the side, vocal verb, vocal delay, drum verb, snare gated verb, and the in-ear effects. And then cascading over what's assigned where, if it's on, if it's how much is sent to that particular bus from that input. Thinking the same way, monitors 1 through 8. Again, we talked about there's 6 delivered with your system. There's monitors 1 through 4, and that 5, 6. And this is how much, in this particular instance, how much of the drums are sent to each one of those packs right there. And then because there's 16 outputs, here's the next 16. We're not using 16, we're using 6. So this is relatively unpopulated for now. Moving down, route is how you'd assign each of these inputs to a group, to a matrix. You'd choose either your A input or your B input, because each input can have 2 different inputs. In this case, we're using the B input because that's where our playback channels for virtual sound check come in, and A is the live input in this case. And then you can assign your routing right from here. So if you wanted to route to the SG-1000 and say, okay, I want this to go out, you know, such and such thing, you'd see it go out right here. And there's your output assignment for that particular thing if you're doing that. Channel is actually something that reminds me a lot of like an X32 or an M32, kind of a left to right overview display. There's a lot of information here, but it's also very handy. Left to right, you got your input, here's your rack, your D5 suite, here's your Q4, and then any of the routings, all 24 bands of routing, and then your output routing. So there's a lot of information. That might be a really preferred view to land on. So that was the first 2, 4, 6, 8 view modes. There's also another 8. Wow. If you had a Dugan Auto Mixer, this is where this would show in. That's about a $500 upgrade you can buy later. We don't deliver that with the console. You could buy that later if you wanted to, and this is where you'd kind of work through that. Rack, you seen that? DynEQ, you seen that? Effects monitor. Well, here's a way to see all 16 in one place, or I guess I should say the first 16. So this is your verbs and your top 8 monitors, or all your monitors 1 through 16 are all in this one. Or if you want to see the bottom 8 with your effects, there's different ways. They really thought of every way you could possibly want to see things laid out, and they gave you a quick hot link for that. And then route and channel, really the same things as we saw on the previous tab of views.